Good evening. Welcome to the Football Throwdown. I am Sava from Football Heritage TV, joined tonight by, we've got Crystal Palace in the house. D, how you doing? You well?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Finally, good to be on. It's been a while coming, but yeah, man, it's good to be on. Thank you for having me on.
No, always a pleasure. Dan from Man United, who I'm sure your team really isn't that good, but you never seem to lose. It's really annoying. How are you, Dan? You all right?
It's horrible, isn't it? It's horrible.
Awful to watch. Awful to watch.
All good, mate. All good. My Tuesday debut, because I've not been able to do them, so I'm really excited. Really looking forward to tonight. And
Good. We'll talk about Jose a bit later.
Oh, but we're not doing that, mate. I'll be going to bed by Tom if that's the case. Well, I've heard a lot about D through Lawless as he is about me, so I'm looking forward to seeing him in action.
Yeah, he's a character, is Dave. Let's go to you next, Dave. Nottingham Forest. Are you relegated yet, or are you still hanging on in there?
I don't know. If you'd asked me at 5 o'clock Saturday, I'd have said, yeah, we probably are. But then I watched Leeds, Everton, Leicester actually kind of help us out. So, yeah, we're sort of still in there pitching. If you'd have said to me last August that we'd be kind of still here at this late stage in the season, I said, yeah, all right, yeah. But it's gonna take an almighty effort to stay up.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's very tight down there. We've got Tom, who's gracing us with his presence for 45 minutes. How are you, mate? You must be chuffed after the weekend.
Yes and no. The way we won as a fan is amazing. In reality, I should be terrified because of the performance, but to dunk on Richarlison's head like that and have him leave Anfield in tears after his 5 celebrations and one, that made it all worth it. I'd happily throw a 3-goal lead away once again just to go through that all again.
Tom, I honestly thought it was Harry Styles when I looked in the corner. I'm going to make sure my wife doesn't come in here, or else it's game over. My marriage is done. And you're holding the mic as well. Can you do us something?
A little karaoke.
I love the way Tom holds his mic.
I've got my mic as well, actually. So well done, Tom.
Oh, old school. Devo, to complete the list. Devo must be a very happy Arsenal fan after what was, look, you won the first half, you lost the second half, 50-50 game. You must be ecstatic.
Yeah, well, I'm happy that we managed to see it out. There's still one or two bits in there which upset me as a fan. I think, when we went 3-0 up, we took our foot off the gas. When you're trying to chase down a team such as Man City wouldn't do that. 3-0 up, you'd still be seeing them trying to bag in a 4th and a 5th and 6th. That's the kind of level we need to reach. So it's kind of disappointing to see us kind of fall back into that, considering what's happened the last few weeks. You think that we would have been out there 3-0, right, we want a 4th, right, we want a 5th. But we kind of just rested on our laurels a bit and allowed Chelsea to come back. As you said, they won the second half, even though they didn't have a sniff. So it's a bit disappointing in that regard.
It must be terrible up there on your high horse in second in the league, challenging for a league title when Spurs are conceding.
Top now.
Top for 24 hours until...
for all it means. You never know. Moyes magic.
Listen, that'll be another 5 or 6. Guys, let's just quickly talk about the game that's just happened then. And then I want to talk about Premier League Manager of the Year, Player of the Year. I know it's not been announced yet, but I just want to get your feelings before we actually get to the award time. Then we'll let Tom have his 5 minutes to tell us all just how much he hates Richarlison. And then we can just pretty much talk about whatever we want. That's the beauty of having a YouTube channel, right? Someone who's not an Arsenal fan, i.e. not Devo, was that a magnificent performance from Arsenal, guys? Or are Chelsea that bad, or a bit of both? What did we just watch there?
Chelsea are awful. They are like genuinely awful. They suit their league position. Actually, they don't. They should be like 14th, 15th. I just don't, especially in the first half. It's unbelievable that they've spent about £600 million on like it baffles me, and you get that outcome. They're just terrible. They're a terrible side. So as an Arsenal fan, for Devo, I would expect him to be like going into this game, even despite their most recent form, thinking a comfortable win should happen. And let's be honest, I know you wanted a bit more maybe in the second half, but it was comfortable for Arsenal. It was, and it shows Chelsea's problems from the top to the bottom, literally.
The best player has been N'Golo Kante as a striker.
I thought Mudieke was good. I think he looked he was
grew
the
into
only
it,
one who was on
didn't
it
he?
from the beginning. Yeah, from the beginning, he looked like he was on it. He just didn't really have anywhere to go with the ball.
What about
But he was
Aubameyang?
trying.
Who starts Aubameyang up top? I mean, what's he even doing? He's got João Felix or Aubameyang? Do you know what I mean?
I get it.
Are we seeing though that the two clubs, the three clubs that have sacked the most managers, i.e., if you look now, Leeds are now on to manager number 3 for the season with Big Sam. I can't wait to see Big Sam football at Leeds after they had Bielsa about a year ago. I mean, the contrast is amazing. You've got Leeds who are about to be on their third manager. Spurs are on their third manager. Chelsea are on their third manager. Are we seeing here, guys, the importance of consistency? Because I know they weren't amazing under Potter, but they weren't this bad, were they, under Potter?
No. I think the issue that they had is they put a man in charge and then just threw all these things at him and said, right, deal with that. And then they didn't give him a chance to deal with it. I don't think I've never seen a job where someone's been put in and they've literally said, I have this player, I have that player, I have this player, I have that player. Find a way to make it work. Yeah. And there you go. Yeah, down there in the corner. Yeah. So I felt sorry for Potter, considering that he did such a good job at Brighton, and people kind of forget, because of how well deserved he's done. People kind of badmouth Potter, and they kind of forget that Potter was a major reason for that Brighton squad.
Yeah.
And if given the time and given a chance to slim down that squad, I reckon he would have done a decent job.
I think that's where we'll disagree, though, Devo. I just think there's certain managers, Brendan Rodgers, who, when they get to these big clubs, they don't realise just how big they are.
Yeah.
They'll get the job based on how well they've done with a mid-table club. And then you go to a big club, and once they actually realise, oh my God, this isn't just people from my city coming to watch me. There are people from all corners of the globe, from countries I didn't even know existed, who are trusting me to get the best out of this team week in, week out. I think it just gets a certain manager. And I don't believe that Potter, I think he needed another job before that Chelsea job. And now that he hasn't had it and he's had that negative experience, I just think that's going to be a stigma that sticks with him. Certain managers just end up making the wrong career move and never being able to adapt to big clubs. And I think David Moyes, Brendan Rodgers, Roy Hodgson, there's a wide array of them. And I think Potter's the next one.
What's up with Roy? Well, why did Roy have a dig? He's what manager of the month. I mean, we're enjoying Roy Hodgson right now. There's a lot.
I'm not sure Roy knows he's manager of the month.
He should.
His carer does.
Everyone's dead happy about Roy Hodgson being manager of the month. I'm not. I still remember that man buying my club Paul Konchesky to play at left back.
Tom, you've got there's a lot of hate coming out of you tonight, Tom.
Tom, for a young lad, mate, you've gathered a lifetime's worth of hurt there. If ever you want to call me, mate, your Uncle Dave's here for you.
Dave,
can I just say?
What are you talking about, mate? It's Harry Styles. He's doing new stuff for his next album, mate. This is all going down on track.
When he comes to me, mate, he's going off in a thrash metal, grindcore, post-punk direction. Listen, can I just say what Tom's just said actually is a good point, because I think at all levels, I think it's really important for a manager to get the club right. And I think when we come on to talk about these managers who've done well this year, I mean, from our point of view, I mean, we're struggling. It was always going to be difficult, but with us over the last, say, 22 months, we finally, after 23 years, got somebody who gets our club. And I think it's really important. I mean, we're at our level. You lads are at, higher levels than Forest are. But I think in every context, Steve Cooper, I felt when he came to us, he'd done his research about not only Nottingham Forest Football Club, but about the city of Nottingham. When he came into the club, he brought in all of the guys who'd won European Cups and all the stuff in the past to ask them, look, how do I go about it? What did Cloughie do? What can I take into what we're doing now? And I think it's really important. And I think when we come to talk about these guys later on, there will be guys who, and it's a kind of a nefarious phrase, got the club.
But Dave, let me ask you then, is it difficult, this to everyone, is it difficult for Potter to have come in and got the club when it wasn't the club as we know it? This was new owners, new technical director, new players all over the place. What was the club? Do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't a Chelsea star-studded Lampard, Terry, Ballack,
But
Makelele.
The club philosophy was still the same. When I look at Chelsea, I just read them as one of the most arrogant clubs in the country because they spend money and they win stuff and they don't care how they do it. That is what they go by.
Yeah.
And their best managers have always been the ones who come in and go, we're the big Chelsea. We win games. We are better than you, and you. That doesn't matter. They sit there in press conferences where some managers go, oh, there's no easy games in this league. They sit there and go, easy for 3 points. Get it out the way. I've got bigger fish to fry. When Potter's coming into this club and sitting there in every post-match interview going, oh, the boys gave it their all. There's no easy game in this competition. I think that's where he differed from Chelsea. I think that's one of the ones where he had to come in, and I don't think he has that in him. I don't think Graham Potter's a very arrogant man. I mean, he pulled turtlenecks out for the first time in his career because he was at Chelsea. That's the level of arrogance that we got. But I think you need a certain level of, I'm going to say the word aura about you to carry yourself at Chelsea. Sure. And I don't think Potter ever was going to get that. So I don't think it was ever going to work.
But the follow-on from that is, and I was sat there tonight looking at this because I know Poch has been, I don't know if it's if it's completely done, signed off, but what big manager wants to go to Chelsea at the moment? What big manager wants anything to do with that squad, with the backroom staff, with the owner? I can't see any major manager that's going to go, yeah, give me the job, I'm going to take them back to the top, because there is going to be a massive, massive job in there on their hands to not only win the fans back over, but to implement a structure there themselves, an idea of how they play. When I look at them today, I manage Sunday League, and my boys look a lot more in tune with each other than them not do. They look like a bunch of individuals that have just been asked, just all met at a park and told, go on, let's go and have a kick around. Do you know what I mean? I don't see where the identity comes from.
I'll be honest. I think it's bigger than a manager. We're talking about the managers, but it's the ownership. When you're talking about Leeds, it's the ownership and how they're run. It's the decline from Bielsa to Big Sam. With Chelsea, it's the decline from Tuchel to Frank Lampard. I think it's just bigger than just the manager coming in and and his tactics. I think Frank Lampard is not a good manager. That's one thing. I don't think he's a good manager. But it starts from the top. You need to build a culture around the football club. With Leeds, I don't know what the culture is anymore. With Chelsea, I don't know what they want to achieve as well. Yeah. So for me, yes, managers do play a part, but I think the ownership and not having, a philosophy in place also plays a part as well. Because right now, all the clubs that we're talking about sacking managers is because they don't know what they're doing.
It's a sad development it's a sad development in football history, I think, because I go back quite a long way. Because I remember football, late 60s, early 70s, and in those days, if you got as it were, I don't know, 22 football clubs in the old First Division and said to anybody, right, name the owner of Arsenal's, name the owner of Aston Villa, name the owner of Nottingham Forest, name the owner of Manchester City, Manchester United, whoever. Yeah, they were like people totally in the background. And where I get angry is now we've got people who've never kicked a football but have done a spreadsheet and put some money together telling football people how to run the game. And I think possibly the worst development the game is that. I can't stop it, and it's the way it's going to be. I've got to get used to it. But when owners, the best owners to me are the ones who are kind of hands off. Let the football guys run the football. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And just to second that, that's kind of the whole Lampard situation. Him coming in the first place, I felt it was a terrible decision. Because if you sack Graham Potter, you've got to have something in place where you're like, well, we're going to have to sack him. It weren't like it was an overnight decision. It was spoken about for a while. We're going to have to sack him. Let's get this person in and let's right the ship. They thought, well, let's sack him. Frank, what are you doing? I know you've just been sacked from Everton in a relegation battle, but let's steady the ship and let's try and win the Champions League. Let's not forget they're still in the they're out of the Champions League now, but they were in the Champions League at that point. The rest of the season was a bit of a mess up, but they had a chance in the Champions League. And you bring in Frank Lampard, who today you've got 6 games left of the season, and you're not playing any of the players who are likely to make up your squad for next season. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Baffling.
And they're now 12.
And my earphones just died. So
would you say though that's why it could be before we move on to Spurs taking another pasting, that could be why it's a good thing for Poch because he will create that. Poch does create that. He did it at Southampton. He did it at Spurs. He takes those young, hungry players and he turns them into a team. Now, is he the guy that Tom's talking about, the aura guy? Is he the guy that wins at all costs? And I wouldn't say he is, but I don't think Chelsea are that club anymore. I think Chelsea are a couple of years, if I'm being polite, out of that. They're nowhere near Newcastle. They're nowhere near anyone. So could Poch be a good match for them?
Hey, they're near Bournemouth. They're on the same point as Bournemouth, they're near them.
Near
Yes,
Bournemouth
they are.
and Forest and Palace. Well, they're below us at this current moment of time, so yeah. But literally, go ahead, Dave.
D are on 40. They're on 39. If Bournemouth beat them at the Vitality on Saturday while the King's being crowned or whatever else is going on, Bournemouth could be above Chelsea, which for a club of that conceit, let's give it that word, is an embarrassment. But they've only got themselves to blame. That owner knows less about football, that Bowley, than the teabag in my cup at the moment. Do you know what I mean? It's like asking a Lego brick to run a football club. Do you know what I mean?
It's a shambles from top to bottom. I mean, he's tried to run that club. The thing is, I always said this with Abramovich. He spent a lot of money, but he always respected the club. He had a lot of love and respect for Chelsea.
Yeah.
Todd Bowley has zero love or respect for Chelsea. They are just this plaything. They're just this thing where he can chuck money at it and then maybe it'll work eventually and I can flaunt it off to all my other big wig mates when they're at some NFL Super Bowl thing or whatever. Chelsea, I do think, even though they are a club that is built on egos, Poch is the right man. It's just going to take a while and there needs to be a trust that he can change that environment and that legacy, that club for a little bit to a little bit more of a sort of developmental club in the nicest possible way, where they're not the big wigs all the time. Maybe they just need to go through 2-3 years of bringing in the youngsters, selling on the youngsters to the bigger clubs, bringing in more youngsters, selling them on, etc. Because, like you said, there is no top manager who wants to take that job at the minute. And if there's no top manager out there,
to do that,
top one.
Is Poch the man to go in there with his chest out and do these things? Because he's always struck me as a nice guy. He's a good coach, a nice coach. He's never really. Yeah, he's a great coach. But what I mean is, you talk about these egos that have taken Chelsea to where they have in the past. The Contes, the Jose's, people like that. Is Poch the type that can handle that? Because obviously he went to PSG. There's no denying it didn't really go well for him there, and they were big egos. That was like people that you don't want to be. I personally would never manage PSG for the fact you're not hiding to nothing already. So I just worry with Poch that has he got that chest to do it, and also will the fans give him the time to do it as well? That's the next thing.
Mm-hmm. But can I ask, guys, quickly, D, just before you come in, just really, really quickly, I keep hearing this, Dan. I question if Chelsea have got egos anymore. I feel that they've come so far the other side from... Listen, ego doesn't have to be a bad thing, right? But, as I said, when they had Lampard, Terry, Carvalho, Ballack, Drogba, big egos all over the park, managing that is tough. And that's where, like, a manager like Jose Mourinho was superb, Dan, right? But... if we're talking about now, I look at their squad. Where's the ego? Where are the big... I don't think they've got big stars anymore. I think Kante's a big player, but
is
he's not
anymore.
The ego.
Because he's not the Kante that we watched, win leagues and absolutely boss it with Leicester and come in Chelsea and change it. I don't think he's the same player.
They've still got egos, Sava. This is the thing. They've got egos, but they've got the wrong type of egos. They've got egos without any backing.
Arrogance.
Individual level.
I tell you right now, Enzo Fernandez has an ego because he's
100%.
the most expensive Premier League signing. Mikhailo Mudryk will have an ego. Kalidou Koulibaly will have an ego. Even if you want to go English, I guarantee you Reece James and Chilwell will have an ego in a sense because they play for Chelsea, which is the issue that they've got at the minute. Even though they shouldn't have egos because they are going to finish below Bournemouth. They have egos of a side that should be challenging for the title, and that is going to be the toughest thing to change.
Look, individually, there are some good players at Chelsea. There are. Yeah. There's no. let's not deny that. I think they got some quality players there, but
Only on paper at the
it goes to
moment.
the owners, though. It goes to the owners. It's bigger than Poch. I can't say if Poch will be a success or not because it depends on what the owners want. Well, Potter, I think one of the biggest mistakes that they done was spend all that money straight away. It was not an organic rebuild or organic process. It was just like, let's just spend the most amount of money. Let's bring it back
now.
It was FIFA.
Everyone,
It was a
exactly.
FIFA
It doesn't
rebuild.
work like that. And that's why they've got this individual egos because they don't know how to play as a team. They don't know how to be successful as a team because they haven't been successful as a team. So everyone in that dressing room at Chelsea is looking at each other saying, well, I'm better than you. I'm better than you. I'm better than you. Rather than, if we're as a team, we'll be brilliant. But they don't know that because they haven't been successful ever since all these players have joined, since Bowley has joined the club. All they've gone through is mediocrity. They haven't had any success.
Would you
that's the
say
problem. That's why all these players are backing their egos based on their own individual talents?
their
Whereas if they
agents,
didn't rush the process, and if they brought in players step by step, start from the back, build it to the front, then I don't think this ego thing will be an issue. And with Poch, it goes against it's once against Bowley. Is he going to rush it? Is he going to rush the process, Bowley? If he is, then the same problems will happen. Poch will not be a success.
Agree, 100%.
Do you not think? I mean, if Poch goes in with that group of players for the summer, because let's be fair, if I was Poch and they approached me with 4 or 5 games to go, I don't want to pick it up now. I want it from fresh in the summer. Do you think with those players he's got there, plus Nkunku coming in, you've got Lukaku coming back, you're probably going to clear out the Aubameyangs, the Ziyech's, some of the Deadwood. I do think, D, that they've got the nucleus of a good team. But for me, where I think Lampard's going wrong, and this could be here all night saying this, but for me, I think it's what Carragher said at the end of the commentary there. You've got Mudryk, who's going to be a part of this club for years to come, right? Get him in. Get in your Mudryk. Get in your Fofana and your Badiashiles. Keep them all in the 11. And at least if you're going to go down, it can be, okay, well, look, these guys need to settle and grow for next year. But for me, he's gone back to all the old tried and tested. Azpilicueta, Sterling, Aubameyang, Kovacic, Kante. And there's no legs, there's no energy, there's no attack. So, listen,
The whole Sterling thing, mate. Go on, D.
You can't win because he's gone back to the older players because the newer players wasn't working out. So it's like a lose-lose situation.
But was he playing them all together, D? That's the thing for me. Like, was he, like, for example, with a Mudryk, for example, Mudryk's a talented footballer that everyone's going to laugh at and judge because that's what we do with players that have 4 or 5 games and don't set the world alight. But for me, play him every game, give him a run of games, let him build a relationship with the same left back for 5, 6, 7 games, and then settle in. But what they seem to be doing was, one week it was Loftus-Cheek centre mid, then it was Kovacic, then it was Gallagher, then you've got Mudryk 1 game plan left, then it was Sterling, then it just felt like there was too many dots moving around.
Yeah, I understand that. But even with the left back situation, let's say Mudryk and it's Chilwell, but that's the thing. Even that changes. Like they just don't have stability in that side, and they won't have stability until they get rid of players. There's just too many players at that Chelsea side, and it's not players for just players' sake. It's just players that are maybe just too good to be sitting on a bench, or maybe they think they're too good. They just need a whole cultural reset at Chelsea. Like you've seen Cucurella and you've seen Chilwell. Now, Cucurella has been absolutely awful signing for them. Like, Brian absolutely scammed them a lot. It's been unbelievable. But then again, Cucurella's probably thinking, I'm better than Chilwell. Chilwell's probably thinking, I'm better than Cucurella. There's no one at the top that just, setting the tone. It's like players just taking over and letting their egos take over.
It doesn't help when he's playing a different tactic every game as well.
What was that?
No cohesion whatsoever.
It doesn't help when he's playing a different tactic every game. His first game was a 4-3-3. Then he went to a 5-3-2. Then he went to a 4-2-3-1. Then he went to a 5-4-2 or a 3-4-2-1. Then he went back to the 4-3-3. I don't think he's played the same system 3 games in a row.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
2 games in a row. That's where the lack of cohesion comes, because even then, when you look at it, like Mudryk, I agree, Mudryk should be starting because you spent £100 million on him. And he's going to be there next year. I don't think Sterling's there next year. He was awful today. At least play.
Sterling's a funny one, though, isn't he? Because I remember when they got Sterling, Chelsea fans, oh my God, we got Sterling. Every football fan should know this. There is one thing that you should know for sure. Pep Guardiola does not let a player go if he rates them still.
Yeah.
He knew that Sterling was on the decline, and that is why he let him go. And it's proved it this season. He has been shocking. And tonight he was shocking. He was awful.
I don't think.
I think it tells you everything about Chelsea, that we, in our desperate plight, are targeting that as our second away win of the season, a week on Saturday. Honestly, we look at our last 4 games, right? We've got Saints next Monday night. That's going to be really hard because Saints will come, they'll give the lot, they'll be desperate, they might not be good enough, whatever. But that's a tight game. But that game against Chelsea, I mean, yeah, we're taking the piss as Forest fans, like, but we're thinking, watch them tonight. And me and my mates have been swapping messages on Forest chat groups going, you know what? If we stick to our guns and we come up with a cohesive plan, why can't we get something at Stamford Bridge? Because that lot haven't a clue what they're doing. I tell you what, Tom might bear me out on this. If we can play like we did at Anfield when we were actually quite respectable, even though we were beaten by a better side, if we could play like we did at Anfield and take that to Stamford Bridge, why can't Nottingham Forest pull off a massive shock? You know,
if you play like you done against us, you'll beat Chelsea. And them long throws, put them long throws in the box. Because oh my god, I've been scarred for the past 4 games whenever a team lines up for a long throw. I've never seen anything. I've never felt like this for years.
That's
Tom.
I was Vladimir Kufal take a long throw for West Ham, and I was suddenly petrified. I was getting
he's got a hydraulic. Tom, Musa Niakati's got a hydraulic spine, mate. You know what I mean? He's extendable. I think he's an X-Man or something like that. You know what I mean?
It was Niakate to a 1 year, and we just couldn't deal with it. Everything fell back to you. It was terrifying.
Cracking day out, but yeah.
Look, guys, let's move it on from Arsenal. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Please like if you haven't already. Please subscribe. I'm 39 away from 5k. Come on, people, 39 from 5k.
I've got 39 clones, Sarah. We'll get you there, mate. 39
Good,
clones.
mate. Listen, everyone, quickly create a second account. Guys, I want to talk. The last individual game we'll talk about before we go generic. I want to talk about Tottenham losing to Tom's lot.
Shouldn't laugh at.
Go on, Tom.
D, listen, I'm the one Spurs fan you're allowed to laugh with because I've been through this for so many years. It can't be more
Tottenham than that. Like it just, you can't script. Like you just, I'm sorry, you just can't script Tottenham. Like it's just unbelievable. It's called Spursy for a reason, and I'll be absolutely frustrated if I was a Tottenham fan, but. It is what it is. Like it's just crazy. It's actually crazy.
If someone had told you that was how that game was going to go beforehand, you'd say no, that's too far. That's even too far for Spurs. That's even too far for Spurs.
We're the gift that keeps giving, though, right? Because I mean, one week we're 3-0 down in 9 minutes and 5-0 down in 21 minutes. Then midweek we're 2-0 down to United, come back to 2-2, and then all of a sudden Spurs fans are going, Ryan Mason is the man to take us forward. And fans like me are going, this is insane. No. Then we're 3-0 down to Liverpool in 12 minutes, right? And 3-0. Bearing in mind, this was the game for Liverpool to leapfrog Spurs for the first time this season, Tom?
Potentially, yeah.
Right. So we're what, 40 odd weeks? I don't know how many weeks into the season. So we go 3-0 down. Then when you go to 3-0, I'm thinking, we're going to get a point. We're getting a point. And then 30 seconds later, we go all Spursy on it. And I mean, Tom, tell me from a Liverpool point of view.
Some say Richarlison's still trying to put his shirt back on now, isn't he? I think.
I hate that.
Honestly, not will beat. Honestly, credits to the Sky Sports cameraman because the moment that goal goes in, they don't cut to Diogo Jota celebrating. You see Richarlison hands on head, looking around, going, In reality, that was a really bad performance from us. We had a really good 15 minutes and then we switched off. And we let you back into the game. And to be honest, we should have lost. We should have really lost. Heung-min Son hit the woodwork twice. Christian Romero hit the woodwork. We were pinned back for ages. You kept exploiting the fact that Harvey Elliott can't run back. And then when we brought Joe Denson on, he definitely can't run back. So poor Trent Alexander-Arnold and Canate were left out to dry. But I would happily go through that full 93 minutes again just to experience that last 30 seconds of Richarlison tears. The hatred I have for that man, it was vindicated in that one moment.
He's got previous. He should stop taking his shirt off. He did it at the start of the season, and the goal got disallowed.
He doesn't get it. To put it in perspective, guys, right? To put it in perspective, I'd ordered fish and chips, right? I was really hungover. I'd ordered fish and chips, and it came at about 94 minutes, whatever. And Spurs had just equalised. And in the time it took me to go and open the front door, right, get my fish and chips, I've run back in, and my uncle's going, Liverpool scored, and I'm going, oh, shut up. And he's like, no, they've scored, and I'm like, I wasn't even shocked. It was like, oh, I mean, guys, somebody who's not Liverpool or Spurs, what do you make? What do you make of both clubs this season, D? I don't know your opinion on this. What do you make of Spurs and Liverpool? Because there's no way they should both be top six. It's embarrassing.
All right. Liverpool just having one of those seasons where you can make that argument at the start of the season. They had weaknesses that they needed to strengthen. So we know the problem with Liverpool is to do with squad. Maybe there's some other issues off the field, but with Liverpool, I don't think it's as major as Tottenham's. Tottenham, where do we start? Like, how long have we got? As I was talking about at the start of the show, it starts from the top. How on earth do you go from Conte to Cellini to Ryan Mason? How? And then also this season, like one of your best players, Son. I know lately he's been scoring goals here and there, but for the majority of the season, he was quiet. And there's big question marks about your best player in terms of Harry Kane. Like, what's his future? Tottenham. Saba, in honesty, I'll be worried about Tottenham even going into next season. And you probably are. Because you don't know what's going to happen next season. You don't know if it's going to be Ryan Mason. You don't know if, God knows, I don't know, Wanyama's going to come back and be player manager. Like, you don't know with Tottenham.
Wanyama.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. Whereas with Liverpool, even though they have problems, those problems are a bit more, they're solvable, and it's not as big as Spurs. Like, Spurs have absolutely just, that Spursy thing that people love saying. They've shown this season why that's been a thing. You haven't even been competing for like the title or not, but you're still bottling. You're bottling something that there's nothing to even have in the first place. It makes no sense, but you're managing to bottle this season. Like top four. I guess top four would have been too much for Spurs this season, but you expected it under Conte. The biggest baffling thing for me with Spurs is how on earth are they still up there? How?
That is amazing, isn't it? That Spurs haven't dropped out the top six all season, I believe.
Yeah,
I don't think we've dropped out. It's mad.
But they've been helped by Chelsea massively underperforming, because Chelsea would probably been up there, and Liverpool not be. I think Liverpool are just going through an end of era cycle, a transition. That game on Sunday afternoon actually showed you the difference, the key difference between both clubs. Tom's saying that Liverpool didn't play at their best. They didn't really. They didn't against us, but they found a way to win. Tottenham, by contrast, are as soft as Roy Keane has said. I mean, if you've got what Tottenham need, they want the ghost of Dave Mackay and Danny Blanchard to come back, because that early Tottenham team in the 60s, they were as hard as nails, right? Even the team in the 70s. So Tottenham are soft. Liverpool haven't an attitude problem. Liverpool are getting wins when not at their best. That is a really good habit to be in, right? A really good habit. Tottenham Hotspur are just soulless, gutless, and like Harry Kane was looking around on Thursday night thinking, "Oh, I quite fancy going playing for these," because he'll go to Manchester United, right? I think he would suit Manchester United.
We'll see you in June. We'll see you in June. I love that. I love that.
Mate, you won't see us because we'll be relegated. But I just think that game summed up the two teams. Everything D says about Tottenham is absolutely bang on. And like, people don't come up with a meme or a trend or a theme like Spursy. If it's
I love the fact that you know what a meme is, Dave. I love the fact you know what a meme is. That is just unreal.
It's a North London
I'm down with the kids, Dan. I'm down with the kids, man. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, Arsenal were doing pretty well as well, and they've somehow managed to bottle the league. So, I don't know. North London, there must be something going on up there that we don't know about.
I think the biggest concern for Tottenham, though, has to be we turned up for 15 minutes, and we were 3-0 up and should have been more.
Yep.
And Newcastle turned up for the first half, and they were 5-0 up.
Yeah.
When teams can be bothered to go, you know what? Let's give Tottenham a little bit of a battering. Tottenham get a
Yeah.
battering. That is the massive worry. And I
Yeah.
don't see that stopping because what it is now is a 6. Let's not undersell Newcastle. A 6-1, then a 4-3 in the manner that it was. Teams will be sitting there looking at Tottenham going, we can get at them. They're a soft underbelly. And your defence, one more thing, your defence may well be one of the worst I've seen in the Premier League this season. Christian Romero is one of the maddest things I've seen as an excuse for the centre-back. I don't get how
did
his
he win
best
a World
contribution
Cup?
of the game
He's so
was hitting
overhyped.
the
I remember,
post.
I remember start of the season. There was Romero is one of the best centre backs in the league. That was the talk, and now look what we're seeing. Look,
Got
I'll
Eric
be honest.
Dyer, mate. Eric Dyer.
This
Went
might
to World
sound
Cup.
wild, yeah, to people who don't watch both Palace and Tottenham, but I will take literally none of the Tottenham defenders over Palace defenders.
No.
And funny enough,
I
Palace
agree.
defenders are linked. Mark Gahey is linked with Tottenham, and that's the level. And like Joachim Andersen, I feel like he will be fit at Tottenham. It just shows.
Pedro
it just
Porro
shows-
as well.
What-
He is awful. This
You know
Pedro
what?
Porro bloke, how much did you spend on him? He can't mark.
45 on it.
Yeah.
45.
You know what problem with Tottenham? You still got something to play for. With Chelsea, look, they've had a shambolic season. They're 12th. So these players going into this Arsenal game, they could just think, all right, it's just Arsenal. We got nothing to... But with Tottenham, you still got European football. Like, you got like maybe Europa League, or you could drop down to Conference League. Like, you still got something to play for. And despite that, you're still seeing players that are not switched off for 90 minutes. That's the most baffling thing.
But
With
again,
other clubs,
D,
you can make
it's...
an excuse.
Again, I feel it's that constant change. 2 changes of managers, all these constant changes of systems. But essentially, lads, what it boils down to is the players aren't good enough. This is what it boils down to. Tottenham Hotspur are Harry Kane and Son, right?
Yeah.
Harry Kane and Son, to answer your earlier question, D, of how are Spurs still up there, Harry Kane and Son. Lesser this year's Son. Harry Kane's got 25 league goals playing in this pile of crap without a playmaker.
Oh, I can't wait to see what he does next season for us.
Oh,
Honestly, I'm not even joking. I cannot wait to see. Honestly, oh my.
But
days.
just to put it in terms, this defence that Tom was talking about, the worst defences in the Premier League. This is the first time Spurs have conceded 57 goals or more. Bearing in mind there's still 4 league games to go, since the 07-08 season, when one day Ramos won us a League Cup. Right? Now, put that in perspective. 07-08, right? Even in the year when Jose was here, right? My mate Jose, when he was here, he had Rodon, Sanchez and Dyer as his back three, and we weren't even conceding this many. But people keep telling me Romero's great. And what happens is I go on shows and say Romero's not good. And the next day I wake up to loads of abuse on YouTube about, oh, typical Spurs fan digging out Romero. The guy is crap. The guy... Dan...
Can I ask you,
go on, Dan. Go on, Dan.
Sava, here's a question. Would you take Harry Maguire and Cash in the summer?
Harry Maguire.
Listen,
that's really evil, Dan. Oh, that's really.
You know what? I think Harry Maguire will probably fit into that type of defense.
he would.
I'm not even taking a piss. Like,
I'd take Matty Cash. I'm not taking Maguire.
I'll take Harry
and
Maguire
Cash.
over Dyer. Why not?
Yeah.
To be honest, Dyer is so bad, right? Put it this way, Dyer is
At least
so
he lives
bad
up to his name.
that for the absolutely, Tom.
Living down to it, Tom.
For the last however many months, they've been making memes of. Sorry, it's not even a meme. It's just a picture saying Levy out, enough is enough, right? And a picture of Daniel Levy. In the last week, they've changed it to Dyer out, enough is enough, because the guy has been here for 9 seasons. 9 seasons, and
It's got to be longer, hasn't it? Wasn't he there when? No, it was 9. Yeah.
No, he's not quite reached the testimonial, but they're talking about giving the guy a 3-year contract extension. And you know, when you just sit there and you think to yourself, this isn't getting any better, is it? Like, who looks at that and says,
When's the Ben Davies renewal? When's Ben Davies getting his contract as well?
He got renewed last year, mate.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
crazy. That is
right.
crazy. Sava, this is.
I think he's
don't know
the
about
best,
you.
which shows you how bad the others
Yeah,
are.
best, yeah. probably
I
is
think
best.
Ben. I think Ben Davies is as near to a solid guy as you'll get because the rest aren't. You know, we saw him in the League Cup at our place just before Christmas, and they are the most uninterested. They were thieving money off their supporters that night. You know, people have travelled to Nottingham and Newcastle and basically been mugged off by their own team. Dreadful, soulless.
And let's be honest, I actually quite like Tottenham's attack bar that Brazilian knob in Richarlison.
Yeah.
I like Kulusevski, I like Kane, I like Son. And I even like Danjuma, although I don't get why he didn't get played enough. What I don't get is just how awful the rest of your team is. Like, I know you got kicked in the head, and it probably should have been a red card, but Skip and Højbjerg, they must be the least inspiring midfield duo
Shocking.
in the Premier League.
They make McFred look quality. They make McFred look
They
quality.
just look awful. They look so bad trying to do anything.
Why am I coming into McFred?
But nothing's going to change at Tottenham. I'll be real. Let's be honest.
I'm saying that McFred's better than Skip and Højbjerg.
I come in and the first thing here is McFred. I wanted to jump back out.
Literally, like the recruitment is so poor at Tottenham. It's like, cool, you're going to sell Harry Kane, but what are you going to do?
Who is their best signing this season? Who is Tottenham's best signing this season?
Fraser Forster.
Fraser Forster.
Fraser Forster.
He didn't even make a save on them.
I would say the girls in their fish and chip shop on the away end.
We had 4 shots against Tottenham on target on Sunday. We scored 4 goals.
But should he have saved any of them, Tom? I don't really think there was anything that was his fault from the goals, was there?
I think he can do the Jota one. I think the Jota one, if you're not old, if you're not falling over on the floor, sticking a leg out, you can get a hand to that.
God,
But he's
Dave,
still
he thinks Fraser Forster is old.
What?
Goodness,
What
goodness me! I mean, I'm 83, so I don't know what age Fraser Forster is, but he's right. I mean, what Tom's saying. I mean, the age gap between me and Tom is astonishing, but we're so on the same page about Tottenham Hotspur. It's just, Tom, you're making me feel young, son. I can't thank you enough. Honestly, it's brilliant. Good lad.
Yeah. Look, let's look. Staffy, welcome to the show. Tom, do you need to jump? Are you good? What are you?
Yeah, I'm gonna shoot now. But lovely chatting with you all once again.
Big shout out for the new album,
Nice to see
Harry.
you, bro.
Good luck. Number 1. You're going to number 1, mate. You're going to number 1.
Special thank you to Sava for giving me and his team for giving me that wonderful moment of happiness on the Sunday, because I really needed that moment. I got to see his back tattoo as well. I've never seen anyone so self-righteous to put their own face on their back just to whip off their shirt.
Oh well, Tom, if you give me a second, mate, I've got
Anyway, good chatting. Make sure you're subscribing to everyone. Make sure you're paying attention to everyone. I'll see you all maybe next week in a bit, everyone.
Take care, Tom.
See you later.
See you, kiddo.
Guys, let's move on. I want to talk about I want to talk about the player of the season. And listen, I was having this chat with I'm sure you all know Henry Wright, who big Spurs YouTuber. I work with Henry, and we talk football 24/7 to everyone else's annoyance. And I said to him today, I said, we're going to talk player of the season tonight. And he went, well, that's a really short conversation. It's Erling Haaland. Now, is anyone able to throw out a name that can match Erling Haaland? Because I truly believe this guy's going to get player of the year, young player of the year, and every other accolade that he's allowed to win. Can anyone put up a fight for any other player in the Premier League to be in the conversation, at least?
Serge Aurier.
Henry,
unbelievable.
I can't lie. Henry's right, Savo. Like, it is just Haaland. I think it's
love you,
Haaland.
Dan.
They can mention the likes of Odegaard and Wooden Place, but for me now,
The closest one you can
Kevin De
actually, I won't even say De Bruyne, because De Bruyne didn't have a good start of the season. He's coming to form like late, as his team is coming to form late. Maybe like more of like the second half of the season. I would say the only person that might deserve a shout, because he's kind of like punching above his weight considering where he's playing, I would say Ivan Toney, just because he has 20 goals playing for Brentford. That's kind of impressive. That's still not enough to beat Haaland, in my opinion, but he's the only one that's worthy of a shout, in my opinion, But unfortunately, I mean, even if Haaland plays a stinker for 90 minutes and scores a goal late in the game, you know, he still has 33. What is it, 33 or 34 now? See, like I even lost count.
On 34, I think. Yeah.
34. There you go.
He's playing his own. He's playing his own game. Let's just say that.
Yeah,
he's not playing the.
Erling Haaland.
You can't break
the only,
I was going to say
he's
this.
the only phenomenon on any list. He's a phenomenon. He's a freak. We've
Luckily, he
not
won't
seen
be here
anything
for
like.
long because he's a mercenary as well.
You
He'll be
know.
off somewhere else soon.
Well, I mean, the only ones I wrote a list down of who I thought, and I'll go through the list, and you lads will probably just cut me to pieces for it. But I wrote like Haaland was the first name. Then I wrote Jack Grealish because he's been unbelievably consistent to me. De Bruyne, Ake, Mitoma, Caicedo, Saka, Odegaard, Saliba, Casemiro, Guimarães, Rashford, Joe Linton, Trippier. That was my list. But Haaland is. We talk more about Haaland, or people in general, even people outside of football who don't know football, talk about Haaland. So I don't think there's anybody to get anywhere near him, and the numbers bear it out.
So, for the purposes of this conversation, if I remove Erling Haaland from existence, would that now be a much better conversation when we're actually talking about who's been the second best? Right. I'm gonna chuck a name in. I'm gonna chuck a name in. I'll be interested to see what you guys think. What about a Sven Botman, who's come into Newcastle in his first year? They've got the best defence in the league, right? And he's come from the French league, and everyone says, "Oh, you can't buy players in the French league." Why wouldn't someone like that be in the? Again, Haaland doesn't exist. Why wouldn't someone like that be in the conversation for the top 2-3 players of the year?
Well, unfortunately, defenders don't really get that noticed as much as goal scorers, because it's what's more attractive to you when you're sitting there and watching highlights at the end of the day. You're not watching highlights on, blocks per game or stops per game or successful tackles. They go under the radar,
Ballon d'Or says it all, doesn't it? Ballon d'Or.
The last Ballon d'Or winner was Cannavaro.
And yet, for supporters, I think it's attackers and wingers and all that. But I reckon if you were asking the professionals inside the game to give awards, managers and coaches and things like that, they generally tend to lean more towards defenders. I think because they coaches and people inside the game appreciate what these guys do. So like that's why I mean Botman is a great shout, but that's why I put like Kieran Trippier on there. Nathan Ake, I think has been fantastic.
Personally, I think Trippier is probably higher than Botman.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Just for chances created as well.
Botman's a good player, but I feel like I feel like there's probably better players. But look,
and Trippier was the first one through the door when Eddie got the job, was it? Or he might have even just been before Eddie. So Trippier was the first one before Newcastle started bringing others in.
And that's why Eddie Howe deserves credit, because people, I know not a lot of people say this now, but Newcastle haven't even entered their spending spurs.
Yeah,
like he's actually they spent some money. Don't get me wrong, but they've spent money, and all the players that they've bought, they can sell them on for higher value already because of good coaching. So with Newcastle, I think more credit has to go to the likes of Eddie Howe rather than Newcastle feel rich now, that's why they're successful. No, not really, because Newcastle still haven't used that power. They could use it, trust me, but they're not all the way up there. But yeah, a Trippier I think has stood out for me, but Haaland wins it. To be fair, probably you can't count him in it, but I think Harry Kane, considering how
definitely
that's a good shout.
He could be involved in that conversation, because if you remove Harry Kane from that Tottenham side, are you below Chelsea?
Harry Kane's doing for Spurs what Ronaldo did for us last season. Somehow, just still scoring goals in a team
because he's not playing well. Harry Kane this year hasn't displayed the same level of. I mean, he actually did quite well the other night against Man United, second half, where he dropped deep and started dictating. But this season, we've not really seen that from him. What about if we're saying Haaland's going to win that? Is Haaland going to win Young Player of the Year as well? Because you can chuck players in there like Saka, you could say, has had a good year. Other young players have had a good year. Players like Martinelli, Saka. Is anyone else? Is Odegaard? Is Haaland about to do the clean sweep of everything?
Yeah, he has to. Listen, when you break the all-time goal scoring record, you have to take every award that's relevant to it, because this is history. He's making history right now. When you look at all these guys who had those top scoring seasons, so Ronaldo when he had 31, Salah when he had 32, Suarez when he had 31. If I go back and check, all of these guys won their awards that year. So when Haaland comes in at this age and he breaks all these records, he has to take every award because it is relevant to what those goals meant.
How many's he got? How many's he got at the moment?
34.
50.
Oh, 52.
How many?
52.
Well, so he's only 8 away from the immortal Dixie Dean 60. Now, if he's to pull that off, given how football is now compared to what it was in the 30s, that's even more astonishing, I think.
It's got West Ham at home tomorrow night.
That's another 4.
Go on,
And
Dean.
then am I
another
right in
4.
saying they've then got Leeds
Leeds,
at
I think,
home?
Yeah, Leeds.
Yeah.
He won't
Yeah.
score against Leeds. He's a Leeds boy, isn't he? He'll
They've also
relegate
got Everton. They've got to play Everton as well. So, you know, if he was to get 60, that would blow
Shane
my
Chelsea
mind.
coming up.
And Chelsea. He's playing
Yeah.
a bunch
He
of
could
terrible-
score. Like, he
a
could
lot
score
of
8
lower
goals.
league teams then, playing a lot of lower league teams. Then.
That's why I put
Is
in
there-
Chelsea there.
Is there,
Hey,
is
but
there any
Luke Shaw
players?
pocketed him. No, Luke Shaw pocketed him at Old Trafford. So just saying.
And at Wembley.
Are there any
Oh, I don't know
players
about
that should get a special mention that are not going to win it, but players that have surprised you this year for any club?
Mitoma.
Mitoma?
Absolutely
Mitoma,
brilliant.
Yeah,
Saka,
I'm not going to
Rashford.
rave on about Brighton players. I'll be honest.
Rashford has to be in there because everyone thought Rashford was
Yeah.
finished.
Yeah,
Everyone
Marcus,
thought he
yeah.
was done.
Saka.
Casemiro.
I'll say
Casemiro
Saka.
for me.
Saka.
Casemiro
Casemiro
would
won't
be-
be in there just because of the amount of suspensions he's had.
Exactly that.
terrible.
By the way,
He missed
also,
like 9 games. Yeah.
I'll be honest. I think if Casemiro's there, Rodri should be there. I don't know about you. lot.
Yeah,
Rodri's
Rodri,
class.
Yeah,
Rodri
Rodri is
Joe,
actually
Joe
people rave
Linton
on
as
about
well.
Casemiro, and I
Why
get
is Joe
it.
Linton not
Joe
there?
Linton.
The
Joe Linton.
Casemiro-
Bruno
the Cas-
Guimaraes.
Now,
Yeah,
Joe
the
Linton had a better
Casemiro hype
season,
is
in my
there
opinion.
because of the impact that he's had at Man United, because Man United desperately needed someone, like Casemiro. But Rodri's been fantastic this season. Like, he's
Yeah.
been quietly just doing his thing, and I feel like he's been
Yeah.
a better player ahead of Casemiro,
Do-
despite how good Casemiro's been doing.
Do you know what, Dean?
Casemiro hasn't
I-
been good for us the past few games either.
No,
Like, since
he's
he
not
came
been.
back.
He's not been good since come back from the last.
Like his
suspension.
last game was good, but before that, we were actually having a talk about how he's put 4 or 5 games in a row where he hasn't been good at all. And right before that was his suspension. So you're talking about a 2-month period where he hasn't really been effective.
Do
So
you think he's
that-
pulling back? I think he's holding back. I do. I think he's terrified of the official.
For a great story,
so.
a great human story, I think Christian Eriksen's amazing as well. That guy was dead, what was it, a couple of years ago at some point. And to see him, I've had the privilege actually of seeing Christian Eriksen play against Nottingham Forest 4 times. Yeah, we've been thumped every time, but to watch that guy play football is something
Great
I'll
player.
treasure.
Great
Player, and the story for him to be doing that at this level. I mean, let's go back to last season, what he did for Brentford when Brentford were beginning to tread water and looking in danger. Right, I think he's an amazing footballer. That guy, absolutely.
I consider him one of the signings of the season, considering that he was on a
For
free.
sure,
When you look at
yeah.
when you look at the price, which is basically 0, and the effect that he's had on the team, I think he has 1 less assist than Bruno, and he missed like 2 months of football with an ankle injury.
Yeah.
He's been amazing for us this year.
Yeah,
Well, another player I think's done well is mentioned it here as well. Paulinho. I think
Yeah.
whenever I watch Fulham, that guy covers ground. And I know players like that, they're unfashionable and they're never going to get the plaudits. But even the game against Man City, he was in there disrupting, tackling. But to your point, D, about Rodri, for me, Rodri is one of those players. For me, he's Busquets.
Yeah,
He's Busquets.
100%.
He is the player that you think Busquets in that Barcelona team, when everyone always goes, oh, but Messi had Xavi and Iniesta. No one ever says Busquets, right? And Rodri, for me, I think when Pep Guardiola and his team scouted him, or they'll have known about him for years. I think he must have gone, oh yeah, get me, yeah. There's my midfielder for the next 7-8 years. And City without Rodri is not City. It's not it.
He enabled
City
Dan
with
Saba. It's a brilliant point. I watched Rodri play a couple of times this season. What Rodri does, and Casemiro does it to a certain extent as well. These brilliant midfielders who don't appear to be doing a great deal, but they are doing. They're like a swan. Everything's going on underneath the water. What they do, the word I have for them is they are enablers. They enable other people to go and play. And I think, when Manchester United and Manchester City are up that top echelon of the league because they've got these guys that can do that. I think I was going to say, I don't think Newcastle have got anybody like that. I just think those guys, every time I look on Sky Rolling News, it seems to have different stats on, and the most passes made by any player in the Premier League this season is Rodri by quite a considerable margin.
Yeah,
and he just gets and gives the ball, and I think he's a Rolls Royce of a player. But like you say, he's not sexy, is he, in a way that the others are?
But he's perfect.
The problem that he has is that he plays for City. That's a big problem in terms of getting the credit. Because when we talk about City, you talk about Haaland, or you're going to talk about Grealish because he's a massive talking point. And those are the big talking points. Look, Ake this season. Ake's been fantastic.
Been brilliant.
We haven't even mentioned him. Like, Ake's been fantastic. Roger's been fantastic. But no one's going to talk about these
been
players.
good as well. He's had a really good first season.
Akanji's been amazing.
Do you know what? When you look at people talking about, Pep only buys these really expensive footballers and the world's best. When you look at that back three that have been playing a lot in the last, or three of the back four in this 20-game run where I think they've not lost, right? Is it 20 games they've not lost 4?
They won 8 in a row, and I don't know how many undefeated, but they won 8 in a row
right.
so far.
You think he bought Ake, that everyone went, Ake, Chelsea flop at Bournemouth. What's he buying him for? John Stones, who for me is criminally underrated, but for me is now the best English centre-back.
Makes Harry Maguire. He saves Harry Maguire's bacon for England. I think he takes a lot. I think he does a lot for Harry Maguire.
And then Akanji at 15 million. Like, when you look at that, that's sensational. And all three of those, I can chuck Ruben Diaz as well, but I think we all know how good Ruben Diaz is and expect it. They've done brilliantly. They've done absolutely fantastic
as well. Like
Mahrez
crazy money on Julian Alvarez as well. That's a fit, but that's a narrative though with Man City. That's a narrative. That's what people have to say. They just have the money that they spend the money. They win like that. Money doesn't bring you success. Like, football's not that straightforward. Everyone knows that. If that was the case, then Chelsea right now should be literally champions. They should be winning the league. They spent crazy amount of money.
All the teams who are doing well, or some of the teams who are overachieving. Like, let's say, look at Brighton have overachieved, Brentford have, Aston Villa, Fulham to a certain extent. What these clubs have within their confines that I think Liverpool need to find, and Tottenham need to find, and Chelsea need to find is they've got somebody within that organisation who can pick a footballer, because the recruitment in all of those clubs, Manchester United's recruitment, I think, has got better this season. It can get better still, but I mean, somebody at Brighton can pick a player. Where do they get theirs? They just signed João Pedro from Watford. He'll be good at Brighton, And Brentford, where do they? I mean, I was at Brentford on Saturday, and you look around and you think, this is a really compact and bijou club, but boy, can they find footballers. And it's almost like Chelsea need to go and find somebody who knows what they're looking for in a footballer. Tottenham need to do it. I tell you what, Crystal Palace have been in this league for a long, long time, right? And so many years you think, Palace are going to go this year, Palace are going to go. They never do, because they go and get Michael Elise, they get Eberechi Eze. And and Palace's recruitment, you have to say, because of the longevity of their stay in this division, is fantastic. And it's that one person behind. We took 30 people at it. So I can't sit here and say Nottingham Forest recruitment was great. Some of them have been hits. A lot of them have been misses. We need somebody in our club that can do what people are doing at Brighton and Brentford. Yeah, and whatever. That's that recruitment.
But again, it's that stability that we were talking about, Dave. Because Brighton have a process now. You know, if you're a Brighton fan, and I don't speak for Brighton fans, but I'm pretty sure when Brighton buy a player, that most clubs will turn around and go, "Who?" I think Brighton fans give their scouts the benefit of the doubt and go, "Well, we know what we scouted before."
Isn't Paul Jewell part of that, Sava? I'm pretty sure Paul Jewell's part of the players coming in. I'm pretty sure he's part of it.
I'm not sure. I know the main
Paul
guy
Jewell of Wigan and Derby. Dan.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's part of it, because him and his lad work there. I'm pretty sure I read an article that he's part of it. He's part of like the decision making.
Yeah, possibly. If he is, great. But the other night when I watched them, it was actually against you lot, Dave. the team came up on the screen, and I'm looking, going, who's that kid? Like, but Buenatone or something. And then when I googled him, it was like, they've just signed him from Rosario, and you go, I bet he can play. I bet he's a footballer. Do you know what I mean?
Sava, obviously they were knackered after that semi-final against United. So De Zerbi made 5 changes that night, and we were like, there were certain people we were expecting to see, but we didn't see. And I think what happened that they as a collective did get tired second half, and Forest astonishingly overpowered them. But for the first half, there was a 25-minute spell in that first half where Nottingham Forest were made to look like little boys chasing around, trying to get the sheep back in the pen. Brighton just kept the ball. From the moment that Brennan Johnson missed the penalty, Brighton kept the ball beautifully. They just passing and moving and passing and moving. And Forest were made to look really, really like a pub team. They tried hard, but they just chased shadows. You know what I mean? And
they're a very good side. They're a very good side.
If we were to pick an owner of the season, and I'm loath to do it because owners, we shouldn't really be talking about them. Tony Bloom at Brighton has to go close to being the owner of the season because
I think he's done fantastic.
I think he lets the football people. If like as Dan says, it is Paul Jewell or somebody else.
I'm pretty sure Paul Jewell's. I'm going to look for it then. I read it somewhere.
Yeah. I'm not going to give Brighton any credit. We'll mostly move on from Brighton relatively soon. We're still going to raving too much on about Brighton here, Sab. I don't know what's going on. I had to quickly go back. I had to quickly go out. But what's it called? Tony Bloom. That's the main reason why Brighton I like this. He used to be involved in the gambling business. That's how he made his money. He's got systems in place for Brighton. In terms of their recruitment, even Matoma, how they found him. Paul Barber, who's I think the leading the recruitment side of things over there. He even spoke about on a podcast and how they recruit for players ahead of time, so they already know if Matoma's leaving, who's stepping up, or who we have to buy. So I think I think it all starts from Tony Bloom and his gambling business and the methods that he used there to be successful, and it brought them over to football. And that's why it's not only Brighton, Brentford as well. Brentford's recruitment, they don't spend a lot of money, but the reason why Brentford are successful is because of how they recruit them players as well. I think Brentford's owner is similar to the gambling business as well. I don't know 100% about Brentford. I think it's similar. I think they used to work. I think the Brentford owner used to work with Tony Bloom, and they've just set up this system, which it's literally broken. I don't know how.
I think Bloomy's the same owning racehorses. I mean, his top 2 mile chaser in Ergoman won the champion chase at Cheltenham, and he was all over Cheltenham there. And you think, this guy, he can pick footballers and he can pick horses as well. He's just a shrewd guy.
I guess the issue that those guys are going to have is it's like anything in football, it goes in cycles, right? So this year they are the big thing, right? This year it's, oh my God, look how well they've done because they've let players go. I mean, when you look at who Brighton have let go and still keep going, Basuma, Dan Burn, Ben White, Trossard, all these. The big thing is, where do they now take? How do they go from that to that? That's the big question, right? How do they stop having to just replace every year, and how do they build and grow? Or is that not the plan? Is that not the plan?
I was going to say that.
They're small club. They're small club. I don't think anyone wants to play for right. Even right now, they've been successful. No, I'm not even that. Honestly, even right now, it's the most successful period in their history, and we're still hearing McAllister's dad or McAllister coming out to Fabrizio Romano saying he wants to leave, or even Caicedo, he wants to leave. So Brighton, I don't think they're ever going to be able to hold players like that. But the thing is, they could get rid of players and still replace them
and make a lot of money
that they bought. By the way, with Brighton, I don't want to give them credit, but this is the final time I'm going to do it. They got rid of the whole coaching staff. Certain clubs, they get rid of the manager, they lose the plot. They got rid of Graham Potter, then Graham Potter's coaching staff. They got rid of the head of recruitment to Newcastle.
Win Stanley,
I think it's Dan Ashworth. I think he went to Newcastle. So their whole backroom staff changed, and despite that, they're still successful. So it's like it's like an unlimited glitch. If they get
succession planning,
they get rid of someone, they got someone else lined up. So
succession.
They're a successful business. I would define them as a successful business. They're gonna keep selling the stock that they have, which is the players, and they're gonna keep re-upping on these players that they find, like Mitoma and McAllister and these players. I don't think they're gonna go to that next step because I don't think those owners really care about winning like that. They're happy to be where they are. They're about to get European football next year, whether it's the Conference League or Europa League. You know, I think it's too late.
What
for
about
a Champions League
Staffy? What
push.
about the fans? So let me just give you a scenario. If I'm a Brighton fan right now, I'm really happy. Right? Let's be fair. I am seeing my team play lovely football. We keep bringing through players. We keep losing players and keep replacing them. Scouting's great. The manager's great. That's great. How many years am I patient as a fan before I go, okay, we're doing the exact same thing we did last year? Do you know what I mean? Because fans are not patient.
You know what it is, Saba? I actually think that you can relate highly to that because Spurs a few years ago were in the same team. And this is no dig, by the way. You guys were not the team with the financial capabilities that you are right now. You know, that those times when you had Mudryk and Bale, you guys knew like, wow, we have world-class players, but eventually they're going to leave because we're not a big club. Eventually you grew as a club just because of the financial side, but then the ambitions never changed. And I'm pretty sure in the beginning, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Surely.
Let me land down so you understand what I mean. I feel like in the beginning, and I don't want to put any words in your mouth because I didn't know you all these years ago, but I'm pretty sure in the beginning, you guys were just happy to finally make top 4 and go to Champions League and, you know, be in these scenes that you guys were never in before. I feel like that's probably the next phase for Brighton, where next year they go into the Europa League and you're going to see their fans singing in the stands, we're going on a trip to Europe. But then give it a few years and it's just going to fade away because, like, the only way to sustain this is winning. But these clubs, I don't think they're built to win. Neither do they want to win. They just want to survive.
I'll be honest. I'm not even taking the dig. Brighton fans, they're not that fussed about winning because they already win. They sport Chelsea, they sport, you know, the Arsenal, they sport the Man United. They're fair weather fans. A lot of Brighton fans, honestly, you can go on Twitter and you see it. Like they say Spurs/Brighton or Man United/Brighton. And when things are going well for them, of course they sport Brighton. But then if not, they're still winning because they'll sport one of the big sides. I'm not even taking the piss. Brighton fans, they're pathetic like that. Like you don't have to worry about that. I just want
to, Staffy, sorry, I've got to come back to this.
Yeah.
I don't think we can relate what Brighton are doing now in Brentford to Spurs. Tottenham have, believe it or not, a very rich history of being a successful football club. And our owners are billionaires, right? So whilst it was nice to get into the Champions League for the first time, and I'm sure if there's any Spurs fans in the chat, they'll agree with me, look at the club now. Because we've not won anything for so long, the fans don't look at it and go, oh, well, it was just nice to get in the top 4. The fans look at it and go, well, hang on, why haven't we kicked on? And I just wonder whether is that because Spurs are a bigger club than Brighton, or are Brighton fans going to follow suit? You know, I know I see what Dee's saying, you know, that they're not, you know, fair weather fans, whatever you want to say, but I don't think you can quite put Spurs and Brighton.
No, I didn't mean it like that. I meant it like within maybe the last 20 years, because that's how much I've been watching football anyways. Like, I'm not that old anyways. But, you know, those past decade and a half, that's when I saw the transition of Spurs to finally becoming a top 4 regular and making Europe, but it just never kicked on to the next phase. And that's why you tend to see Spurs fans frustrated. I feel like if Brighton get themselves in that same position where they have the next five years, they have succession and finishing top 6 and maybe sneaking into the top 4 and getting Champions League. Once it becomes repetitive and you don't win anything, you will have to be frustrated because you're gonna, as you said, you're gonna be selling your best players every year. McAllister, we already know, is gone. You know, God knows if Mitoma stays or not because the way he's playing, someone's gonna come up and snatch him. You know, I feel like a lot of frustrations are gonna come up with this club.
I wonder if any of the Brighton fans are going to look at the Cucurella transfer though and think, am I doing this at the right time? Because Cucurella obviously had an amazing season, dashed off to Chelsea, and as we've all said before, it's just gone Pete Tong, hasn't it, for him? He looks like a championship defender, and I'm saying that being nice. So I wonder if the likes of Mitoma, I agree that with Staffy. I think McAllister. Can't say his name. McAllister's gone. Can't talk. Can't talk. I think he's gone. But then I wonder if De Zerbi will say to the likes of Mitoma, the likes of Caicedo, give me one more season. Just give me one more season. We're in Europe. Yeah. Better your football in tutorage, and then move. I don't know. And maybe that's the way they keep them.
Their model is their model is if a player wants to leave and there's a good enough price that they set, that player will leave. That's the reason why some of these players join Brighton in the first place. That's why they're able to recruit so well. Of course, they've raised the players' profiles, but they're not that type of club to stop a player from leaving. That's why they didn't stop Potter from leaving, because Potter had the opportunity to join a bigger. Well, Caicedo, they stopped him in that period because they're doing well now, and also they had the transfer fee set.
But he's come out and said it about Mitoma, though, hasn't he? He's come out and said it about Mitoma that he wants him to have one more year. He said, "I want him here for one more season."
Does, but if the price is right, they'll probably end up cashing in on Mitoma.
But then I suppose the other thing,
that's if De Zerbi stays.
Exactly that. That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, exactly that.
So,
exactly.
It seems to me. It seems to me that Bloom has a whiteboard in his office where and he's got it seems to me the best teams these days, the best clubs have got these really strong data and analytical departments, right? But then I saw it on the telly. They were talking about Bloomy's whiteboard where he said, right, if we lose that player, we go and get somebody else. We lose this player, we got. It's like if Brighton and Hove Albion were playing chess, they'd be winning most of the time because they seem to be one move ahead all the time. The key point is the thing is next season wherever Brighton finish this year, everybody next year will be looking for them. They'll be a marked team. They'll be kind of like seen as a bigger scalp than they have been. I mean, when we beat them last Wednesday night, we walked out the City Ground thinking, "Good God, we beat one of the best teams in the country." Do you know what I mean? It was a big scalp for us. We got so much off it, that night. So that's the issue for Brighton is they've had an amazing season wherever they finish. Now they have to back it up.
Let's use that as a segue for the last 15 minutes to transition into managers, because as you said there about De Zerbi, look, De Zerbi is, I think first and foremost, I think we shouldn't take away from the great work that Potter did there. I think like everyone feels like De Zerbi's just turned up and made them great. I think Potter did a lot of good work there.
Yeah,
De Zerbi's taken it on. But I want to talk about managers of the year, because I feel like unlike the Haaland debate for the player of the year, this is a lot more open, and it really seems to be, other than David Moyes and probably Cooper as well, it seems to be all the other managers that have kept their jobs, so to speak. Only 7 have kept their jobs all season. And the only other one you chuck in, the only other one you chuck in there would probably be Emery. So
Gary O'Neill.
Gary O'Neill's a candidate as well. I mean,
okay, but look, let's just bring the most obvious one in. If he wins a treble this season, it's going to have to be Pep, isn't it?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's almost the same sort of thing as Haaland, isn't it? That's what they're. I'm not saying it wouldn't be my choice, but that would be the choice, I think, because you look at the names of the Champions League, the FA Cup, the Premier League. That's what will happen, isn't it?
I mean, that's a given. If he wins the treble, he's won it. If he wins the treble, he's won it for sure.
But here's where I differ. I feel like being Premier League Manager of the Year has nothing to do what you do outside of the Premier League. If Haaland, as an example, had 0 goals in the Champions League, but had 34 in the Premier League, I would still be saying he's Premier League Player of the Season. I am not relating the 16 goals that he got outside of the Premier League to the case of why he's Player of the Season. I feel like we have to differentiate between.
Staffy, I agree. That's what I said. That's what
he could still be Manager of the Season. By the way, I'm saying like he should. I'm not saying he should. Sorry, because I'm about to get to who I think is Manager of the Season. But he's definitely top 2 in my opinion, just because of what he's doing. I'm just not going to relate the Champions League or the FA Cup to it, because actually the FA Cup is after the league and the Champions League final is after the league. So when the league is all done in 38 weeks and he wins, he could have a case, regardless of what's going to happen in the 2 other games, to why he's Manager of the Season. Now, when he comes to the Ballon d'Or ceremony that they do Manager of the Year over there, then that's when you say, okay, so he won a treble. He definitely deserves this one. But solely speaking about Premier League Manager of the Season, I think we need to differentiate what you do in the league to outside the league.
I disagree. Sorry, Safi. I'm going to disagree with you here, because I think if a manager gets his team to win the Champions League and win the league, I think you have to look at his management in the league based off of he is balancing every league game with a Champions League game, and he is rotating his squad. Look, I get it. It should purely be based on 38 league games, but let's be fair, all the awards in football are not based fairly, right?
But let me tell you why this logic might actually hurt you. Because let's say Pep wins the league, okay? Then he loses the FA Cup final and the Champions League final, or one of them. Would you now change your stance and say, oh, well, now he didn't win the treble, I don't think he's manager of the season?
No.
See how this logic could play?
And
help you or it could hurt you.
Yeah, and as I said, like he's not my Premier League manager of the year. I'm going down the same basis. I think that sadly that's what will happen because as we've seen it before, I think that's what they'll look at. But no, I agree. I completely agree. The season could go horribly wrong for him. But, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying. I just think I've seen this before many times, and I can't believe there's any way in which you're going to see Pep Guardiola lining up with the 3 trophies, and then Eddie Howe, who's brilliant, by the way, we'll talk about him in a minute, but Eddie Howe sitting there with his manager of the year. Do you know what I mean? It's just not gonna. These things don't pan out that way. But if not Pep, if Arsenal win the league, does Arteta get it?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
They're not going to win the league. So
they've improved beyond all recognition. They have improved so much. They were go back to the start of this season. My view was it was a 2-horse race between Manchester City and Liverpool. I think
everybody thought that, didn't they?
Yeah, not one. If us 5 all knowledgeable guys had gathered together in July and said, right, are Arsenal going to mount a title challenge? We'd have gone, that's stupid.
Yeah.
So he's rough. I wrote a list of names on here, and I'll give the 8 names, right? Arteta, they've improved. Howe, they've improved. Ten Hag, they've improved. Emery, if it was a full season of Emery, he's a big contender. De Zerbi, right? Frank has done amazingly well at Brentford because I thought they would drop off after last season. Marco Silva, Fulham were expected to be dead and buried, right? And Gary O'Neill, I think, has to come into it because I think it's really lazy sometimes. It's just that guy won the league, so he gets it. And I can see the logic, but sometimes apply some context to it. Gary O'Neill came in at Bournemouth, and I'm going to stick for Gary O'Neill, right? And I know some really good Bournemouth players. Gary O'Neill came in at a point where that little club, a tiny club that has really no right to be in this division based on its heritage and its size, they'd just been annihilated 9-0 at Liverpool, and their previous manager, who was actually a bit of a disgrace, worked against his own club. And then basically Bournemouth said, right, Gary, there you are, get on with it. And they've won 6 of the last 9. I'm a Forest fan looking at Bournemouth thinking, God, with our resources, with our heritage and our history, why can't we do what AFC Bournemouth is doing? Mm-hmm. And also Gary O'Neill is like not a high profile person. He's not a thief.
He's in your phone list, isn't he? He's in your phone list, Dave, isn't he? This is far too much.
No, he isn't, mate.
He texted
I just think these last few weeks, they win at Tottenham. Nobody expected them. They beat Leeds 4-1. I think they'll beat Chelsea on Saturday. Bournemouth could end up with 45, 46 points. And they were everybody's pick to go down. And I just think that context to me, it's so easy. I mean, this is where I get annoyed. It's not. There are more than 7 clubs in this league. Okay, they've got gigantic resources at the top, and that's fair enough. It'd be nice if the BBC correspondent actually wrote about somebody other than the big 7 all the time. He writes about Everton a bit, but he hasn't written about Bournemouth. He hasn't written about any of these other clubs.
Sorry, Dave. Sorry, mate. Gary, he said everything you wanted, mate. Everything, word for word, mate. I'll speak to you in a bit. Yeah, sorry, mate.
And a lot of the Bournemouth fans are still in doubt about him, but I think he might have won them over. I really do.
Yeah, he's done a great job. I mean, let me ask about Emery before we go to some others. Let me ask about Unai Emery.
Yeah, he's got to be in there.
That's mine. That's mine.
He picked up Villa from 17th. And they at the time they were 7 or 8 points behind West Ham. They're now 21 points above West Ham. I don't know why I'm using West Ham as an example, but 17th. If they're now,
they're shite.
Well, I mean, purely.
I'm not getting drawn into that.
Purely using it to show that's the level they were. West Ham
they have similar
down
squads.
there in a relegation battle, and Villa aren't. He got them. He's got the 4th most points of any manager since he took over.
Yeah.
He's got Watkins scoring goals for fun.
Yeah.
And he's got Konza and Mings looking like Premiership centre halves.
Yeah.
Like he's done a wonderful job, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Especially if he gets Europe.
Do you know what he did though? The first thing he did when he come in is he stamped his authority on the squad. The whole thing with Martinez from the World Cup, he said, "No, I don't have that here. In my team." He stamped his authority, and the players believe in what he wants, and they go out there. And under Gerrard, I'm a United fan, so you know my thoughts on Gerrard. But under Gerrard, there was too many players that went missing, and I felt the players didn't respect Gerrard. Whereas they're playing out of their skin for this guy, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're absolutely playing out of their skin.
Yeah.
And the two things you can, well, it might sound a bit harsh, but with Bournemouth, Gary O'Neill, I feel like he's getting a lot of plaudits lately because they've been on a good run of form in the past month or two. But Gary O'Neill's been there for a long time, and Bournemouth were still struggling. And people saying they're going to go down, but they're going to stay up. So end of the day, he's done his job.
Yeah.
But Emery, Villa were, I think, 1 point off relegation, or like 2-3 points off relegation when Emery took over from Steven Gerrard, and now they're talking about finishing Europa League spots and comfortably. They've been consistent ever since Emery's been there, so maybe it's become a bit too normalized, and maybe that's why Gary O'Neill's getting a bit more plaudits. But I think Emery, for me, has to win it due to where they were and where they are right now. He's clearly been the main manager for in the entire Premier League to lead a team from literally the bottom to the top, like the transformation.
First game, isn't it, as well? On was it Sunday against United? First game that Villa haven't scored since he's been there.
He's the first manager. Like he's the first manager to come in and get his team to score in all first 20 games. No manager's ever done that. And in 2023, like you were saying, Dave, that's the first game in 2023 that they don't score a goal. They actually haven't lost a game since they lost to Arsenal a couple months ago. So they've been in terrific form.
And for a guy who's mocked for the way he speaks, and his communication inside that club must be unbelievable. I mean, I saw Villa under Gerrard at our place back in October, and Villa were like, "Oh man, whatever." And then I saw him about 4 weeks ago when we went to Villa Park. They didn't have to extend themselves to beat us, and it was fairly routine. But then the following week, what they did to Newcastle was absolutely staggering. And Newcastle have been brilliant.
It could have been 5 or 6 in that game. Could have been 5 or 6.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. You know, so if Emery had been there the whole season, then I think he's a shoo-in.
Yeah, we've got 2 more to talk about before we end the show.
Gary O'Neill hasn't been there all season.
Behind the scenes, I guess.
Not manager.
No, I know, and again, you call it. You know,
I'm only joking, Dave. I'm only joking.
I'm so gullible.
We'll end on Howe, but before we get to Dave Howe, before we get to Eddie Howe, what about this guy? Doesn't seem to be getting talked about it, but could end up with 2 domestic trophies and third or fourth. Now, Man United and Ten Hag, lots of people back in, like your analogy, Dave, lots of people back in July were sitting there going, "Oh, top 4 might be a bit too much in this first season."
Yeah,
they're gonna get top 4. They've definitely won a cup, and they're in the final of the other cup. Is he being overlooked unfairly, guys?
Staffy, don't you dare do me dirty when I say this, but you're a United fan like me, mate. I expected nothing less than top 4 with Ten Hag this season. Knowing the character he is.
I agree.
Knowing the character he is.
You know what it is?
I think he's in a good...
We say he overachieved just because of how bad rivals downplayed us in the beginning of the season. So we're just 100%. Trying to give a taste of your own medicine. But when we're level-headed, I actually expected us to be back in top 4 because last season I thought was a disastrous season that should have never happened. Like, that wasn't really the level of us. It was the level of us that season. But that squad is good enough to at least clinch 4th every season. I'm not talking about competing for the league. But with the players that you have, you needed a level-headed coach that can at least get you 4th every season. And we've cruised this season into getting top 4. Like, it hasn't really been a struggle for us.
Hang on, last year's squad was not that Staffy at all. Last year, who did you have? Was not a squad that I looked at and thought you should be getting top 4 at all in any way, shape,
on paper,
or form.
Though, players-wise, on names, on names you would.
Yes, Saba, you can easily say that after the season ended, but in the beginning of the season, you look at it, yes, this team is not good enough to compete and win, but you should at least be competing for top 4. We did not compete for top 4 at all. By the way, the only reason we made the Europa League, it was because everyone below us, if you guys remember, West Ham slipped on their last 2-3 games, where if they would have won, they would have made Europa.
Yeah.
We didn't win our last 2 games. But what are you asking, Sava?
I'm asking, last year, when I looked at your squad last year, I was very vocal about how bad I thought your squad was. And I still believe that. I think that this year you are where you are because of Eriksen, Casemiro, like Martinez, proper signings. Last year, who in your squad did you look at and think we should be top 4? Because that, for me, isn't level-headed. That's biased.
Marcus has come back. Marcus has come back from the wilderness.
So you're saying that so last season when we signed Sancho and we had Ronaldo back, you looked and thought, nah.
Ronaldo was finished. We just didn't know he was finished because I personally haven't watched him closely for a while. He came in with 18 goals that absolutely did nothing for us. We signed Sancho for 75 million. We had Varane coming in. Is there anyone I'm missing that we signed last season? That you looked at it. I mean, the worst thing about that squad was the manager. The manager was absolutely horrible, and this is why we didn't get top 4. But
this is the first manager United have had since Sir Alex Ferguson who's got the club in his grip. The best thing he did, and I'm going to bore you because I've said it before,
Ronaldo.
He drove the poisonous ego out of Old Trafford and he said, tell you what, lads, I'm Eric Ten Hag and it's my club and I'm in charge. And if you're not happy, on your way. And he's the first person to do that at that club.
He's also
Alex Ferguson.
And he's also what he's done as well. And this is why I think, Ten Hag isn't my manager of the year. I love him. Obviously, again, being United, but what he has done with this Man United side, we've had no striker all season. We've had to rely on Weghorst. You know what I mean? The last 3 weeks we've had no Varane, no Martinez. He is literally patching a team together now, which he's been doing on the forward line all season. You go back to when we were talking before about Mudryk saying he needs to be played. Now, by no means do I think that Anthony has lit this season up, but over the last 6 weeks, I'm starting to see something there. I'm starting to see something with Anthony. As I'm not saying he's super. He's doing a Ronaldo, doing anything like that, but he's getting it now. He's come to terms with the Premiership a little bit more.
It's man management, Dan. It's man management. Look how he handled Marcus at Wolves. Marcus overslept and missed the meeting, and then what he did, I thought that was brilliant. He was asked after the game at Wolves where they won 1-0. What he's had to face this season. I sound like I'm bloody Miss America here, don't I? I just want to thank everyone. Honestly, but what I'm saying here is, I have actually, yeah. But what I'm saying is, he's had to deal with the Ronaldo situation, the Sale situation, right? He's had to deal with the Greenwood situation that reared its head again. That Greenwood situation could have absolutely. Imagine if it all gets pulled down. I don't want to go too much into it because I still don't respect the person. But if he had gone. Yeah, okay, bring him back in. Because some managers that we've had probably would have done that.
And we're desperate for a striker. It could have easily brought him in because we're desperate for a striker, and he didn't. And the whole—I don't know if you mentioned it, but the whole sales situation with the Glazers and the Qataris or Sir Jim Ratcliffe and all the protests and whatnot, it hasn't been that smooth of a first year for him. And yet again, he didn't make us feel like, okay, there's a lot going on, and I'm worried if we're gonna have a successful season. So I've already mentioned it. We're into 2 cup finals. Whether you want to call it a Mickey Mouse double or not, if we make it, it's still 2 cup finals.
We haven't had a cup for ages. We take it
5 years. I'll win a Mickey Mouse trophy rather than lose a trophy. Yeah, Sava would butt my arm off for that Carabao.
I think fans of all clubs should be biting hands off for trophies. I don't understand this. I don't understand this new mentality in football now, where fans go, "Oh, it's only the cup." What?
Yeah,
what are we playing for?
Carabao Cup. I think that's just the entitlement that certain people have. But with Ten Hag, just to finish it off with him, I feel like he's had a good season, but I feel like other managers have had better seasons. With the circumstances.
Agreed. That's why we didn't give him a shout. Me and Dan. We said he's good, but we're not going to say he's manager of the season.
Yeah, he's not manager of the season.
But he's not
because there's been naivety in his game. There has been naivety. Liverpool away, Newcastle away, our away form. There's been questionable substitutions that he's been doing. So there has been naivety, but as far as a first season goes, and look, people in the comments saying, "Oh, the amount of money he spent." Well, West Ham spent a shitload of money. Where are they? I think they're 16th, 15th.
Yeah,
That's
We spent more than West Ham.
Spurs, exactly that. Exactly that. What he's
Chelsea.
done, exactly Chelsea. So the money side of it, no, I don't take that. But what he has done is I think he's ahead of the project that he anticipated. I think he's well ahead of where he thought he would be.
Great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the last one I want to talk about just quickly is Eddie Howe. Just in terms of where he took them over from. I know it's not just this year, but last year, taking them over the same time that Conte took over Spurs. You've seen one club go that way, the other one go that way, and it's, as I said last week, it's not just the players he's brought in, which, by the way, haven't been, I think, D, you mentioned it earlier, hasn't been flexing their muscles yet. But it's what he's done for me is the players that were there already, the Willocks, the Longstaffs, the Joe Lintons, the Almirons, the Shahs. I think he's done such a good job that, for me, I would have no issues if he was named as manager of the year.
Yeah. Agree.
I feel like we sleep on him as well, as football fans at times, because we've become normalized to the fact that Newcastle are pushing for top four since the start. Like they've been consistently good all season long, and I feel like if Eddie Howe had a slow start to the season, then afterwards had a push to the top four, I feel like more people talk about him. But because it's become like the thing all season long, people are not really talking about him as much. But yeah, 100% agree, because with him, I actually had some doubts when he first joined. I was thinking about his time at Bournemouth and how he had some very good moments. Then afterwards, he got predictable. And I had a bit of concerns, but apparently he went out over in Spain and other countries to look at other
three managers, mate. He went to Juve, Liverpool, and Atletico Madrid. That's where he went and studied.
Yeah, exactly.
Studied.
And
did his own work
as a manager as well during that period. And look at some of those players that were at Newcastle before him, and look how they're performing now. Of course, Almiron has dropped off, but Almiron had a crazy start to the season. At the start of the season, we're seeing the
Fabian Shaw.
Shaw.
Joe Linton was brought as a centre forward.
Joe Langton, Joe Langton's transformation as a footballer does not get talked about enough, because this guy was a flop 2 years ago.
He put him in midfield against us. Do you remember?
Last season.
Yeah.
Was it last season or this? I think it was last season. In St. James Park. Yeah.
0-0. Yeah.
And he bossed
and go back to what came before. Steve Bruce came before. They were a relegation. This time last year, Newcastle were in serious danger of relegation, right? And all the money in the world didn't matter. And he took them from that to it looks like it's going to be the Champions League. And there's out of those 8 candidates I wrote down, Pep will probably win it. But Eddie Howe is the one I would plump for.
So why are we not giving it to Eddie Howe then?
I'm gonna give it. This is my last. This is actually my last say on this. Since we're wrapping up after, anyways, Eddie Howe actually is my manager of the season.
And mine,
for a lot of the reasons that you guys mentioned. We need to talk about, if we're gonna mention what Pep is doing this year in a total, whereas winning the Champions League and Cup, whatever. We also have to mention the context around Eddie Howe, where he came in and this club was a new project in terms of a new buyer who came in, and that's a lot of pressure to come in and basically the richest club in the world right now is Newcastle, and they chose you to start this project. This is a lot of pressure on someone like Eddie Howe with no experience, and he's done a magnificent job from last year to this year. And as I think Saba, you mentioned, their new signings didn't even really kick in yet. Like maybe Jonathan Isaac has been like kind of kicking in the last few games. But before that, it's more of like the players that they already had that he has improved and he's getting a tune out of. Like Joelinton, like Fabian Schär, Trippier, who's already there. Did I say Joelinton? But Dan Burn played most of the season as a left back. He's not even a left back. He was a left center back for Brighton. I think he's done a great job with this team. Changed the goalkeeper. When he got a Nick Pope instead of, what was his name? Dubravka. He's done a lot of like small work still that I feel like they're way ahead of schedule. Like when we talk about Ten Hag being ahead of schedule, this guy's way ahead of schedule. I can't say anyone here sat down and said they're making top 4 easily and making Champions League. None of us here could say that we said that.
Staffy, you have to take into consideration, say, the last 20-odd years of Newcastle United. In fact, going back further, they've won zip. They were always described as a big stadium with a little team in it, and they were until this.
Didn't they get relegated in 2006?
They've been down and up. Yeah, they've been down and up 2 or 3 times. But the other thing about Eddie Howe is how he deals with it and how he handles it as a person, how he conducts himself. If there's pressure, he speaks beautifully. He's like, and
But Dave,
I think he's the next England manager for me.
do you not think it's also that we've talked so much about the bad ownership at Chelsea, the bad ownership at Spurs, the ownership at Newcastle? You have to say they are the richest club, aren't they? They could have quite easily gone out there and said, right, we'll spend £200 million on Neymar and Mbappe. They haven't. They've trusted what Eddie Howe wants, haven't they? And I think
because they did something really, really intelligent. They put a woman in charge. They put a lady in charge.
I didn't even know that.
Amanda Staveley. I kind of looked at it at the start off and said, Amanda Staveley, what's she doing running a football club? And she's doing a fantastic job. So I think I want the next chief executive of Nottingham Forest to be a lady. I really do.
Do you know? I want Qataris for Manchester United because I've seen what they've did. I've seen what the Arabs did in Man City, Newcastle, and then hopefully us. They hired the best of the best to do it. Look at Todd Bowley. He put his hands into everything. You know, too many hands in one pot, and he was in the changing room after it, wasn't he? Yeah, it was the game before the Madrid one. I forgot they lost to Wolves, I think, and then he went to the changing room.
So we're all voting for Eddie Howe. Is that right? We're all going for Eddie Howe.
I'm still sticking with Emery.
I'm gonna go. It's hard. I don't know. I don't think you could get wrong answer between Eddie Howe or Emery.
Do you know one of the things as well that's underrated about what Eddie Howe's done is he's sorted out the defense first.
Yeah.
And Newcastle was struggling to score goals, getting a lot of draws, and
now
as we've got deeper and deeper into the season, it's like Newcastle seem to be scoring for fun. But listen, I do want to stop it there. Listen, what I would say, thank you for everyone who's been with us all night. I did miss a super chat, which was the leader of the Phil Army, Phil P. I said, Bottle Job Goats, RC Spursy, and just for anyone that doesn't know, the yellow and purple, or the purple and gold, for anyone that doesn't know, is this. It is, if you can see that in the top corner of the screen. Actually, let me make it better. If you see that, is every YouTuber and person on Twitter, etc., is changing to yellow and gold, purple and gold until we're sold. So that's what people are hoping for Tottenham Hotspur to be sold.
We started that how long ago, Stephanie?
What is this?
That's their version of
green and yellow scarves, Dan. Green and yellow scarves, mate.
I was on the Norwich Mega Store website like an hour before I got on.
Newton Heath, get Newton Heath back.
So what I will say is thank you to everyone in the chat. If you haven't, please subscribe. We're literally like 36 away from hitting the 5K mark, and it feels like it's taken me forever to get over that line. But listen, D, thank you so much for making your debut. Good chat, mate. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on. Hopefully you'll be here more often than not. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, mate. Always welcome. Dan, thank you. Always a pleasure.
Loved it, mate. Loved it. D, we need to do a show with Lawless, mate. I feel a two-pronged attack would be perfect. Perfect.
Lawless,
get him on here, Sava.
We need to
sort him out. No, thank you so much, Sava. Great work, mate. Great,
we'll see what happens
great
on
work.
the weekend.
Yeah. No, Sava, honestly, mate. Great work. It's been brilliant.
Speak to him. Get him on, Lawless. He cracks me up. Dave, thank you as always. Just quickly,
mate.
In one word, who you got this weekend, Forrest?
Southampton next Monday night. Massive game, mate.
Huge game. Staffy, big up. Thank you for coming on, mate. Appreciate you jumping in for Tom.
No, of course. Thank you for having me, man. Everyone follow me. You know, you see my handle down here. Don Staffy. You'll see me on Twitter, on Instagram. You know, want to see you guys on there.
Yeah, follow
whereabouts in the States are you, Staffy?
What's that?
Staffy, whereabouts in the States are you, mate, Staffy?
I'm from New York.
Right, Staffy, that's funny because Gary O'Neill holidays in New York, as Dave will tell you. Like that with Gary.
Good God,
Staffy.
I'm ending the show.
Oh, that's the hockey
team. My New York team, mate.
Stop! I'm ending the show 8 minutes ago, guys and girls. Thank you very much. Thank you, and I'll play you a nice little intro video to see you out. Thank you, everybody.
Bless you.
And here comes Hurst. He's got some people are on the pitch. They think it's all over. It is now.